Special thanks to our promotional partners at the American Philatelic Society.
The APS is the largest stamp collecting organization in the world, supporting collectors of any level worldwide.
For more information about membership and APS services, visit stamps.org.
I'm Charles Epting from H.R. Harmer in New York City.
And I'm Michael Cortese of Noble Spirit in Pittsfield, New Hampshire.
And this is Conversations with Philatelists. Michael,
Home edition.
You need to identify Washington Franklin.
Yes.
Or an 1851 1 cent. Mm-hmm. Or any other difficult, nuanced postage stamp issue. Your Scott catalog's not sitting next to you. What do you do?
Yeah, I go to the Swedish Tiger. I go to
This is one of the first websites.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whenever I'm looking for like a Waterbury cancellation or something, and I just Google it because I don't know, my roll-off book's not near me. This is one of the first sites that comes up as well. Mm-hmm. Whenever you just start, usually if I'm trying to figure out what something is, I'll just put in those Google search terms that are, I don't think there's any way that these specific terms could bring up what I'm looking for, because it's usually some weird mix of like stamp and cancellation and town and blah, blah, blah. And then usually the Swedish Tiger is the first Google image hit.
Yeah. No, it's an incredibly useful tool for people looking to identify material that don't necessarily have a specialized catalog next to them. I'm excited to talk to Roger. I've never spoken with him before, but I'm excited to talk
Roger
to
Kirby
him.
started this site.
Yes.
He started the site back in 2003. So this has been going on for 19 years. Yeah.
So there's been, as far as I know, to my knowledge, 2 iterations of the website. And I'm excited to talk to him about the changes of the website over time. I love it. Over time, but this is an exciting episode because I use it. My employees use it. My father uses it. It's an important website for people looking to, look at types.
I think it's also an interesting follow-up to last week's episode where we talked to Jay Bagalki of Scott Catalog. He's been working for years within the confines of a print catalog where you can't really put in too much information or else the Scott Catalog will, be a little bit ungainly. He's working on his digital edition. And what Roger Kirby does sort of shows the full extent of what you can do with just a website, not having to worry about the confines of print. And being able to make something, widely available online. You can update constantly. You can add information. I think this is a nice, sort of follow up to last week's episode with Jay.
Yeah, he said he updates the prices every year, but Roger is pulling in a little different to Scott Catalog. Roger's pulling in market values from places like eBay, Hipstamp, Delcamp for these items, and then on his about page you can read about this. He removes the top 15% and the bottom 15% and takes the middle set of prices. So removes all the outliers and then takes the middle set of prices and the average for each item. And he licenses the Scott numbers directly from Scott, from Amos Media. They allow him to use their Scott prices, which is a question I'll ask him later in the episode. But it's a tremendously useful website. I think off the top of my head, it goes from Scott 1 or 9x1 to 500.
I think it goes up until the 1950s, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. So again, these are all questions that I think I'm really excited to ask Roger about.
Yeah. Perfect. So without further ado, he's like last week actually here. I'm going to let him into the room now. All right.
Hello.
Hello, Roger.
Thank you so much for agreeing to chat with us.
You're welcome.
So go ahead,
Michael. You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, thanks for joining us and kind of jumping right into stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about your history in philately? What got you started?
What got me started was freezing to death in a Victorian farmhouse in the very north of Sweden. I was a raspberry farmer at the time, and in Sweden, when you're isolated, there's not much to do. And I was rooting around the farmhouse, and in the attic I found an old stamp collection, and having nothing else to do, I researched it, and it gave me the idea of putting some information out there, which was back in 2003, and there wasn't really much out there. And as a result, the website was born, and it filled a few cold nights where the sun doesn't shine.
Did you have any familiarity with stamp collecting or philately before you found that album, or did you really just hit the ground running?
I hit the ground running. So not knowing about it, I had to dive deep into research, and that meant ordering articles, books, news magazines about philately, or philatelic magazines from the eras that were concerned, which is mainly between the magazines were really between 1880 and when I go up to 1950. So ordering copies of magazines there to find articles, because a lot of the accounts were contemporary. And there's books as well, so I had to order those books.
Interesting.
What drew you to American philately in particular? What was it about, and especially, sort of classic American philately is something that's intimidating to a lot of newcomers. It's maybe not the easiest to fully get into. So what was it that?
I was looking after the raspberry farm for a relation of mine, so I was there 3 years. But in actual fact, I've lived 32 years. I haven't got the accent in America, all over South Carolina, Washington D.C., Washington State, Georgia, blah, 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 blah. So I'm steeped in Americana, and I used to go around Civil War battlefields to get some idea of the American Civil War. So I'm a student of American history, that's why.
So at what point in your storyline here did you start building the website itself and kind of learning what you wanted it to be?
What I had to do was gather the material first, which was basically one summer. And then during the next winter, sketch out exactly how I wanted to do it, on pieces of paper, basically. Then I had to learn computer programming in order to do this, buy myself a laptop, and put the whole thing together. So it was really a planning process of 1 year to get it together. And it's changed a lot since then.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask later on, but I can just kind of go through it now. How many changes to the actual layout and the content of the website have there been? Because I remember myself starting to use it back, I think back as early as 2008, and it looked very different with a bunch of different features and everything like that.
Okay, well, the primary use back then was for people looking for values of stamps, and I was recording the value every year. But once I got back to America and got back to my full-time job, which is film production, it was very difficult to keep maintaining that. So live in the winter in Sweden, but after a while it just became burdensome. So what I do now is I do put the values in there, but I update them biannually or annually, depending on which one it is, but I don't keep a full record. Another reason for taking the values away was I really wanted it to be a philatelic tool rather than just how much is my stamp worth, because I am of the opinion it's not the value of the stamps, it's the history behind the stamps, which is where I want to concentrate. That was a change. Then I retired from the film industry about 2 years ago, and realized, because I hadn't really touched the website very much, I realized that people had mobile phones, and if you looked at the website on the mobile phone, you were doing this a lot, and it was very difficult to use. And it wasn't responsive in any sort of way, and I wanted to take advantage of new technology as well, and new tools. So it meant a whole new design, a new revamp, and using things like Python and just trying to think of some of the other programs that use CSS. I mean, there's a lot of stuff's gone in there in order to make it as it is right now.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, you say you started off buying magazines and books, and obviously there's an incredible wealth of information out there through people like Ashbrook and Ninekin and Roloff and all these great books that are sort of the pillars of this hobby. How do you view, or when did you sort of realize that the internet could be such a useful tool in that it can always be updated? You have no limitations in terms of space, or you don't have to worry about printing. You can really put whatever you want out there. You can include as much information, whereas a book or a catalog is going to be necessarily limited by physical constraints. So how did what is your thought on the internet versus a more traditional form of media?
A back step from that. When I had started this, there was a limited amount of philatelic information, basically yurts produced, how many, very basic. But it was starting to be used by philatelists, and it created correspondence. And from that correspondence, I gathered that these were the things that people really wanted to know about. These were the things I really didn't care about. So going back to your question, how did I go about it? It was really guided by the audience. And as far as the books was concerned, what did I extract? What did I use? And where were the limits as far as the internet is concerned? That was also guided by my viewers and what they were really interested in. I mean, there's a laundry list, and I have to prioritize it. So once I've done this task, which is really basically complete the update of the site, there's a wish list, which is really from the correspondence. I know what I next need to do. So yeah, it's limitless. The other thing I would say on this back step is that when I had started it, a lot of information was from Ninekin and other books, Joel, etc., and newspaper articles, but there wasn't agreement between them, and I had to go to experts in the field in order to bounce ideas off them. And since then, in fact, more so today, a lot of the content is actually written by people who advise Scots or who are expertisers, etc. So it's getting more and more technical. In fact, it's getting above the level of my knowledge. So I'm having other people write differences in hair, like the length of hair was the one from this morning. I will give you the exact millimeter length of hair in Washington's head to do a type 2. It's something I would never know, and you wouldn't actually find out. The other thing is, with books, I'd realized that if you see an article which is, say, quoted in Lynn's magazine or on a stamp chatboard or whatever, it's a quote from something that was written previously, which was probably originally written in, say, 1890, but it was actually erroneous. So you have to go back and correct it. And that takes, a lot of support to say, well, it's actually wrong. It wasn't created by this press. Or an example that came in today, a 1917 stamp is actually a 1916 stamp. And I had, before I actually put it down, it was 1916, I requested a copy of the postmark on the cover so I could establish it really was 1916. It's still not up there because I want the certificate before I put it up there. It could have been forged. So when I get the certificate, then I will definitely say it's 1916. So to go back to your question, a lot of it's driven by the audience now. I'm basically the person that puts it up there, but I'm not the person that creates the content anymore.
So this sounds like a tremendous amount of work from just not only yourself, but the experts and other people who contribute to the information that goes up there.
I'm really surprised. I mean, I've got one guy trolling through all the auctions, updating prices for me on rare stamps, or trying to find if one's actually been sold or not. Because there was a lot of times I said no sales recorded, and that was a challenge to him to go back God knows how long, 1950s, to find one which has actually been sold. And in New York Public Library has actually been really, really helpful on this one. They provided me with images of stuff which I didn't even know existed. So where go? Repeat your question again. I've gone off track.
Well, no, I didn't. I hadn't gotten to that point yet. This is a service that you and your contributors provide to the public for free.
Yes.
So what kind of, I guess the question is just with why? How do you have the time and the the time essentially to put all this together for
Probably tired.
yeah. I mean, well, it's a tremendous service is what I'm saying, I guess. And it's something that not a lot of people put the time and effort into providing to others to learn and aid their collections, aid their
it's actually a start. It's a start. Yeah. If every American should be proud of the Constitution, and the stamps tell part of the story, and there's a little bit of history in each of the pages, but there will be more of history in how this is put together. If you go through stamps, you'll see an article recently that there was only the first woman in stamp. So there was a period in the early 30s, so there's no woman in a stamp. It was a very male orientated. There were no blacks on stamps till way later. We go into the 40s then. It was really heads of middle-aged white men then. So not only is it an actual history of events, it's a social history as well. And I would like to weave that into it so people understand the country that they came from through stamps, not collecting stamps because of value or to fill holes in an album. It's actually a piece of history which is easily obtainable, which gives you an idea of the history of the fabric of American society. And also for those people that wants to know how many millimeters the length of a hair on Washington's head should be at the same time.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because it's added a lot of how many were printed, what the designs were, what the proofs looked like, why this stamp came to be, and that I think that history behind when was that added, if I may interject on myself.
That was added when the type changed 2 years ago from the old HTML to the new flashy whatever that you have right now. I can just add one thing about why do I do it for the interest. If you go into, starting at 1898 and go particularly into the 40s, which I haven't reached yet, but I think there's instances of it. It has such a wide audience. Last year I hit 1.5 million. I'm on the target to hit 2 million views a year. And that means a lot of people look at it. And a lot of people who aren't stamp collectors, because I have all this emails saying, But one of the things you do get is the actual people that appeared in the stamps or their granddaughter or whatever. I was really surprised just maybe a week ago. It's a picture of a national park and there's looks like a father and a daughter walking away. Little engraved pictures, very, very small, walking between two sides of a forest, or tall trees. And it's and I got a picture, the actual photograph from this lady who lives in Maryland, of the original photograph, and the photograph that was taken a minute before, and the photograph that was taken a minute afterwards. And she said that was me. 1948, I think it was. And she's now in her 90s, but she said that was me. And here's the photograph before and after to prove it. So, even go back to say 1898, a grandfather who was pictured, great grandfather who was pictured in a plow team. That was him, and his hat flew off. There's a whole story of how he regret his hat flew off because the actual engraving catches the hat flying off his head, so he can't see his head. But lots and lots of people. The last one I would give, and this is probably about a year ago, was the US Army marching underneath the Arc de Triomphe, celebrating victory in Paris. And the photographer wrote to me with a picture of that. He also took a picture of the Navy man on the deck, and he named every single sailor and every single person in the photograph. There must be 100 people there. But he got their names and actually named them all, and plus the original photograph. So it involves other people as well. You get that connection with America, or they're so proud that the fact the stamp's there, and then I show the photograph of the person that was involved. Yesterday I did a stamp which was, just trying to remember what the stamp was now. It was the Red Cross issue. It's a black and white stamp with a Red Cross on it, and it's got a Red Cross nurse. Well, actually, they broke a rule. That nurse was a model. It was the engraving was taken off a poster, a direct copy of a poster. What they didn't know was that poster was not allegorical. It was actual person. They used the model, and that model was living. And there's actually, I found a photograph where she is there holding the poster, the real model. And there's actually a film where she's hoovering her house. So she's a real living person. And there's a rule that you should not have a living person on the stamp. But there she was on the stamp, and she signed it too. So, and it's on the website, that a picture of her that's signed the stamp. So that broke the rule, post office rule, that no living person should ever be on. So you learn these little things as you go along. And I hopefully, by me telling you this, things that you didn't know and things that philately didn't know, the average stamp collector, it draws them into the hobby. What else can I find out? What do I have? I've stopped getting, if you look at my website, I ask not people to send me emails identifying stuff, but I get probably 100 to 200 emails a day with stuff like that. So it tells you this, it's a lot of interest from people who are not philatelists. And some of those emails say, you've got me into philately, which aids the hobby. And that's another reason for doing it, going back to your original question.
Right. Wow.
How much has your, since the discovery of that first album in the attic, how much has your own collecting kept up versus how much time do you just spend working on the site? Because, as someone who works for an auction house, I find myself, sort of collecting by proxy with other people's stamps sometimes. So how much do you still collect?
I don't collect. I was
hoping you'd say that.
I don't. I really don't. I will buy a stamp so I can scan it and then sell it. Often it's not. Nowadays, of course, I mean, that was originally, I had to buy a US stamp collection to scan all these stamps. It cost me a lot of money. Sold it to somebody in New York, and that was a long time ago. But now I've got other people supplying the images for the stamps. So no, I don't need the stamps. I don't collect stamps. I think my wife would kill me if I collected stamps. You're with Harmers, is that correct?
Correct.
I have a lot of respect for Harmers. And in fact, I used to use Harmers a lot when I was buying stamps. One of the, I won't mention the ones I would never use, but I have a lot of respect for Harmers, Siegel, and a few others. But good auction house.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Michael, I know you wanted to ask about the licensing of Scott numbers. That's something that we talked about a bit beforehand.
That's a very good question.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not touching upon the services that you provide to people for free. I mean, I assume licensing the numbers themselves aren't a free service you provide. That was kind of along those lines of, this is something
that was an agreement with Amos Publishing 6 years ago, I guess. They had written saying, oh, by the way, you're using our Scott numbers. And I said, well, what does it take? So if at the top of every page, there's a link to their catalog, and it gets a lot of clicks. So it obviously benefits them. As long as I have that link there to Amos Publishing, then I am more than happy. They are more than happy to let me quote the Scott numbers.
Oh, perfect. So that is a service. That's fantastic. That is a service they provide to
Well, without the Scott numbers, it's going to mean a lot less to people out there. I probably wouldn't do the website. But you can't use, there are a lot of people out there using Scott numbers without Amos's permission, but I've done it proper way. Same with Siegel. If I charge for the site, then I wouldn't be able to use the images that Siegel give me because they only provide it for non-commercial use, and it's non-commercial. So there's reasons about the licensing. I am going to involve Harmers and Siegel and what's the one beginning with K? I forgot it now.
Keller.
Keller. I have a lot of respect for Keller because I would like to get them involved in talking about their auction houses, talking about the services they provide, and the same with PSC and other expertisers, what they provide, and Subway. And the reason I want to involve them is because it's bringing a lot of new collectors in the hobby. And one of the questions I get so frequently is, I have a collection. I went down to the stamp dealer or whatever, and they offered me 50 quid for it, whatever. But it was my grandfather's, and it comes in a 4 Scott Brown albums. I'm thinking, well, it's probably something that's worthwhile. Or can you send me some images? If I get that kind of thing, can you send me some images? And there's where should I send it? I won't get those emails if I've got the auction houses up there saying these are the services we provide, this is the commission, stuff that people need to do to make a decision. I don't need to guide them. In fact, I feel uncomfortable saying, oh, you should use Harmers or you should use Kelleher, simply because don't have the information that they have, as opposed to, they can say, oh yeah, I live in Oregon, so I'll use Harmers, but that doesn't necessarily mean Harmers is the right avenue to do it. So it depends on what the material is. If it's good quality stuff, then they should have an indication of where to do it and how to consign the material. And also, I'd like on some of the more expensive items, this item was sold at such and such. It gives them an idea of where to go for those items. This is particularly true of, and I haven't got here, so I'm actually, after I finish the website, it's the next thing to do. Certificate a must will be added to a lot of the stamps. It'll help PSC, but it'll also help the auction house. And I have this, I have a discussion going around the people who contribute, whether to include graded stamps or not. I'm not inclined to, because it's already all over the place what graded stamps are, and it takes away the average value of stamps if somebody's actually looking for stamps. But I'll leave that one alone. But yeah, with auction houses, it needs to be included as Subway for supplies, obviously, where to get your supplies, and for PSC and other expertisers, where do you go get the certificates from? So that has to be added. I've already written to Siegel, and they're very much interested in doing it when I'm ready to go ahead. But I haven't written to you or Kelleher's yet.
Whenever you want to have that discussion, we can talk offline.
That's fantastic.
I'm not ready to go with it. I've got to finish the website first, but then at that point, it's got to be a new menu tab will be up there. What do I do next?
So when you talk about finishing the website, do you have a finish line
it's
in
getting
mind?
close. 1940, and I'm up to 1931. I think the 1940 is because Scott's catalog albums go up to 1940, and there's not much that's worth anything really after 1926. But 1940, because I get so many questions about it. I don't get many questions about stamps from 1948, for instance, where there are 500 issues. So no, up to 1940 is where my stop point is, and then I'm going to go to the certificates, which has been requested by so many people. What should I certificate this? And no, you don't need to certificate this. It's only worth $5, but you do need to certificate this. And with the certificates comes in the don't do the certificate before first checking this, especially with the Washington Franklins. Don't. This is how you get watermark fluid. Subway. Do the watermark fluid test before you waste your time trying to get a certificate. So there's a lot of that. And then then the next thing is, I have got the certificated. What do I do with it yet? Harmers, Siegel. that's where it belongs.
I think it's great because one of the things that I know Michael and I both get a lot is when somebody Googles, let's say they have a 1 cent Franklin, and they Google it and they see 100 stamps on eBay selling for $1 and 1 stamp on eBay asking $50,000. They're going to assume that it's the $50,000 one and not the $101 ones. And I feel like there's so much online, and maybe it's the whole mindset of Antiques Roadshow and Pawn Stars and this whole mindset that everything is a diamond in the rough, everything is the one that you can retire on. I love that your site is, in my opinion, at least sort of an antidote to that. It's maybe a more realistic look. Hey, this could be a stamp that catalogs $30,000, but yeah, check the perforations, check the watermark, do your homework before you assume that you can, put your kid through college on it. So I really very much like seeing that approach being taken with a website when, again, I feel like so much of the internet is trying to build people up and make people think that they have something that they more than likely do.
There's going to be a lot of that in the certificate thing, meaning that this is not what you think. One of the frequent questions I got is, how come your values are less than Scots? I actually added it in the about section on values recently because Scots it has to be 100 grade stamp in order to be worth that much, and the other thing I've got to put is, I really don't care if this particular stamp is damaged because it will still sell as damaged. There are some super rare stamps that it really doesn't need to be in perfect condition, so don't throw that stamp away or don't think about not doing it. So that also has to be added into some of the stamps. I've started putting forgeries, but again with the certificates, which is where the next loop round when I've got to 1940 is, I've already got down there how to, you can have, for instance, a 12-cent Washington with or without perforations, or particularly the Jefferson, 5-cent Jefferson is so often has the perforations removed. How do I know that the perforations been removed? Those kind of, and then and I will have probably sizes of the, and this is where I want the auction houses to get involved. When I show, for instance, a 5-cent 5-cent Jefferson mint, say we have the buff colored one, I'd like an auction house to actually have one there. This is why this is worth $65,000, and I think that's going to create more traffic for me, and it's going to create more traffic for the auction houses, because people will then have a clearer idea of what it's worth. For every person that thinks it's worth a lot of money, there's another person who doesn't think it's worth that much money at all. And I would say, when I look at the statistics and I look at the traffic and how people are looking, I would say about 40 to 50% of the people there are learning about stamps, which is incredible. So if they do have that stamp, they'll probably miss over it and ignore it. But maybe they should take a second look at that stamp because it's something which is more valuable than they think. So there's a flip side to, I've got the most valuable stamp in the world. I had one guy send me a picture of the souvenir sheet from the post office with the correct size Jenny, the very expensive one. And it was actually not in the picture. It was him showing all these first day covers and souvenir sheets that he had. And in it was that one. And I go, what? Okay. Could you bring that one out again, please? That's again. I think there's probably on a third go around, there are some modern rarities which you might want to take a look at. So, and there was one guy about 6 years ago. He was from Florida, Miami, and he said, can you tell me if this is worth anything? The plane is upside down. So, and then the next email that I got was, I couldn't sleep that night. By the way, it didn't go to you. It went to Siegel at the time. But those are the kind of things where I would refer that person to the auction site. I don't want to make the judgment for them. the auction houses can describe what services they provide. But it's a huge amount of traffic. The website gets now. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a fantastic service. I was going to ask you also, because in one of the ones back in 2008 and a couple of years after that, I forget what year you stopped doing that, but you used to have a section on the website where you would grade and rate different sellers on eBay. You remember that? And you would give them badges like the dealer of integrity. This one sells this much, and this is what their feedback is.
You would remember something like that, Michael.
Yeah, well, there were like 300 dealers on there. There was a massive list.
There was a massive list, and in fact, what you get is you get brown paper envelopes with $100 bills in it from the dealers.
Oh no!
No, seriously, seriously. I well, if this stays, is this being recorded?
Yeah. Oh, okay. We cannot talk about that.
Well, there is a particular stamp dealer who is in the New York area that was made sure or tried to make sure, I should say, that he won the Dealer of the Year. And I just had to return the money to him. I can't tell you who that person is.
That's awful.
I took it off because at that time, eBay feedback was fairly had some kind of integrity to it, and it was a website called Slingshot Venus who did a good job of outing bad eBay dealers.
I've never heard
they are still around, but they're not doing a website. They're technically it's not, he hasn't got the we said, mobile, forget it. He helps me out though, and there's almost a cause to start doing that again. And some road dealers out there, you've got to be careful about this because you could open yourself up to lawsuits if you say that such and such is a bad dealer and that he's a rogue. You could be in a difficult position.
Okay, I understand that. Yeah.
My registered address is in Turkey. I live in Turkey 6 months a year, but I still live in the UK, and the long arm of the law will probably get me. So I have to be very careful about that one. It's a nice thing to do, and I think there's a need for it. I just have to think about whether I want to do it or not. Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was a tremendous addition to the hobby to keep people in check and kind of inform.
I actually think of swapping it around to instead of going through the biggest dealers. You see, the problem is that a lot of really big dealers are dealers who should probably not get involved with. So there's some good dealers. I can quote Noble Spirit as one of the better dealers out there, but there are some very big dealers who you should be very careful with. There was one, and I can mention this name because they're no longer around, Ruby Stamps, who was enormous back in 2008 until it was discovered what was going on with Ruby Stamps, and he's not around anymore. I was calling this guy up a long time ago, gave him a big thumbs down. But would I get a lawsuit from that? I don't know. It's tough to say. The one thing it did do is it brought a lot of correspondence from people who had said, "Oh yes, well you recorded this person as 5 stars, but I've just bought this really awful thing from them. I tried to return it and they wouldn't." And so you get that. That happened, and then I would give the person, say, 1 star, and the next thing I do is get a phone call or an email, or I've even had legal documents saying, "What the hell? Why would you do that? Something like that? Prove it to me." And then I have to produce the correspondence from the dealer, from the person, and then you end up, that's a whole day gone because you're dealing with this nightmare. So it's good service, and I think somebody should provide it. I've also thought about doing it with auction houses, but I haven't.
Yeah, so maybe someone should provide it anonymously, so they don't get all those.
Well, when I live in Turkey full time, I can do it because you can go get me there. Talk about, I will be living in Turkey full time. and not for a couple of years anyway. But when I do, the internet's so bad over there, I'll be forking over the website to somebody else to look after. And one reason I want to involve the auction houses is because I want it to become a selling tool for the auction house, i.e., you've got the picture there, it's got a huge amount of visits. You've got the history behind the stamp. And there, right underneath the stamp, it says, buy now. Or this is featured in our next auction. Now, that takes a lot of work from the auction house to do that.
Yeah.
They've got to go into every stamp. But does it? They already put that stamp up once on the website or sale room or whatever. But I get a much wider audience than the auction websites. And so if they put it underneath, this is coming up in our, so it might be a useful tool. And then the auction house can take it over, and that way I know that the content will always be there. And what they, as long as some kind of agreement that they only adjust the content if it's erroneous, but try and leave the content alone, and then they can add their own advertising, whatever, in there. But I think it would be a useful tool for an auction house, so much as this is the record of sales, this is how much it's worth, we have one coming up in the next, whatever they want to do with it. And they can even swap the image that's up there with the one that's coming up in the auction, buy this stamp now.
Yeah.
I don't offer that. I did try that once, by the way. You probably missed it, but I did.
Oh, really?
Buy the stamp. Yeah, I did buy the stamp now. It worked very well. It really did. But again, it would eat up your day selling every stamp in the world. So I'm not the dealer. I then had to go around and find the stock, because if you had a really decent 1 cent Franklin up there, and it was, say, I even had a number 5 once up there.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
So it was you buying the material and selling it through the website. When they would hit buy this stamp now, it was you.
Yeah, I didn't do it for very long. I did it for 2 months, and it became a full-time hobby.
Yeah,
and it was quite profitable, but again, it took over my life, so I stopped doing it. But I do know that if an auction house did the same thing, they would probably benefit from it. They have to draw a line. It has to be stamped that they actually got in the auction, and Harmers and Siegel and Kelleher are only going to put something which is worthwhile up in the auction. But the other thing is, Stanley Gibbons were talking to me, and I stopped talking to them, but they were saying, well, we sell stuff retail as well, and that's what we put up there, especially the unusual retail stuff. So you see a picture of the stamp, and underneath you see a picture with a gutter pair, which is very expensive, or one with inverted watermark, whatever like that. And because I did have British stamps up on the website, they're not there anymore. There's too much to do, Britain and UK. And so that was something that didn't need to be rotated every sale. They could just put that up there, especially if it's an expensive item, until it was sold. And I would think that was probably going to be very successful for them. And it's one way of me making sure that the website continues after I immigrate to Turkey, and also provides a service for other people and helps the auction houses out too. I have a real thing against internet bidding, because I get all the correspondence from all these people, like just today, and it puts them off the hobby. And the first thing is I don't know enough, because I keep getting ripped off. What does it mean? It says Vaxellamy on the newspaper stamp. That means things like that. They get pissed off, and they give up, because they're thinking, well, I don't have enough knowledge to continue this hobby, and it's a shame, because you lose people as a result. By the way, if you look at my traffic statistics, less than 50% come from the USA.
Really?
Yeah. A lot comes from India and China, especially China.
Huh.
India is a big collecting. Thailand's another big collecting country, and they don't know about Harmers. They don't know about Kelleher. They don't know about Siegel. They buy the stuff off eBay, and they're the people that get pissed off, because that's their only source of content. But there's a lot of people coming from China, and they know their stuff too. They correct me on things. So yeah. I don't know how many stamp collectors there are in China, but there's a lot out there. And Chinese stamps become so expensive. They're now looking for something else. So anyway, that's the long term. Anyway, next question.
My last question is, you've got these long-term goals for the website, integrate auction houses, things like that. But in the immediate short term, as you march towards that 1940 goal, people who maybe have used the website for years and rely on the website, what can they do to contribute? What are you most in need of in terms of content or images or things like that? What can people do to again, you provide this great service for free. How can people give back to you?
They do already. I mean, I'm amazed how many people write in, especially very knowledgeable experts and expertisers and people who are well respected within the field. They contribute the images and they contribute the text right now. So, like I said, I'm now just the content provider. I'm not the content giver. Is that the right way? I'm the person that publishes it. I'm not the person that provides the content. Much so, it's already given back by people. Even Joe Blow in the street, who submits the photograph of their father and them as a child, they're giving back to the website. So this already happens. It's a creation of American people. It's not creation of me anymore. And I don't say American stamp collectors because a lot of people are just very new to the hobby.
Well, I think it speaks absolute volumes that the amount of traffic that you're getting, and you had mentioned that these other sites, these dealers, these auction houses, they don't get as much traffic as you because people are searching for this knowledge. They're searching to learn. They're, and you're providing a service where people are able to learn for free and learn so much about specific stamps and about what they have and what they might be interested in going down the line. And those photos that you're providing, I mean, it brings people into the hobby because they get
something that you're missing is there's a lot of correspondence that comes through that says half of it would be of this particular nature. I've started collecting. I used to be a collector when I was a boy. I've restarted it now. I'm retired. That's about half of it. The other half of it is I've got my grandfather's stamp collection. In both instances, well, especially in the latter instances, they start going to the website and valuing it. And it's sometimes wonderful things like I'm on welfare. I'm having to sell my cars. I eventually got grandfather's stamp collection, and it ends up being a frigging fortune. And what do I do with it next? You know that from auction houses. And that's when the material comes in. It filters in to you, but when it filters into a probate office or something, I get pissed off because they're going to make as much money as they can out of the auction house or the dealer or whatever. So it's filtering. There's still that lost connection between I've got this, what do I do with it next? Especially those people who want to fund their hobby with what they've got, or they want to liquidate the asset that they've inherited, found, whatever. So there's that what next thing, which is where the next part of the website is going to go. After I've done that, the certificates, what do I do with it? That's when I will, and that will probably be about a year after 2 years. That's when I'll go to the auction houses and say, okay, do you want me to hand this over to you, or should I just leave it on the server and continue? Because I will draw a line in about 2 years' time. Yes.
Okay.
I'll be bathing in the Aegean Sea instead.
We'll all be jealous.
It's very beautiful in Turkey, I tell you. And my wife, who is cooking in the kitchen right now, is from Turkey as well. So I'm going to be joining her full time. By the way, I have to ask you a personal question. I see beams in the ceiling. Where are you?
So I'm working from home today.
I gathered that. I think it was
about a year ago, almost to the week, I purchased a home in upstate New York. So I'm in Dutchess County, New York, which is about 70 miles north of the city. I bought an 1850s farm home.
It looks fantastic. It really
thank
does.
you. So when I bought it, this was a polystyrene tile drop ceiling in
Oh
here
no!
from the 1970s.
You found this.
It was horrible. There were mice living within that ceiling, and there was asbestos within that. So a couple of months ago, I came in and took the ceiling down, and then had a contractor drywall between the beams. So yeah, this has been hiding since the 1850s underneath a horrible ceiling.
I was particularly excited. You're Harmers, and the other guy is Noble Spirit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. I was particularly excited to see those two names because I have great respect for it. But as you see, I've been talking about a lot of the transition and the next stage. And I was excited that both you guys will probably be involved in the next stage. I don't know if a large dealer like Noble Spirit, because I don't know enough about the eBay business to know if that's going to be of use to them, saying you can now buy this on, oh, look at that, I've got Steve Unkrich. It's just some distinguishing features on 2 cents. Another expert sending me an email on new content to add to the website. But yeah, I was excited to see both of you guys, because both of you guys are leaders in the field and potentially could take this project on when I'm ready to hand it over in about 2 years' time.
We'd love to keep in touch over the next couple of years, and it's certainly something that we both use a lot, both personally and professionally. So anything we can do to help moving forward, we'd love to have those.
Well, actually, something you can do immediately, both of you, is I will start as Siegel are very slow on the uptake. I can't remember the guy's name. It just takes ages to return my phone calls. But as you are proactive, what I will start doing as of this week is I'll start putting some items from your auction houses saying this was sold by Noble Spirit. And that's going to be difficult because eBay only keep the last 90 days sales, or this was sold by Harmers, which Stamp Network keep it for God knows how many years, 50 years or whatever. But Stamp Auction Network, Droz, keeps your images for a long time. I think you can keep them on your website. Noble Spirit, I'll just have to look and see what good items, yummy items he's sold, and put those on. And I'll put those on the website within the next week. And I will drop you an email at the email that you sent me to say, by the way, your stamp that you have sold is featured. Oh, you got a cat. These stamps were sold by such and such. So to help you guys out as a thank you for doing this.
Oh no, well,
we would appreciate that very much.
There's a tremendous service you're doing to the hobby with this
website.
I can only
do it back again by putting up some of Noble Spirit's stamps. You once sold an unbelievable collection about 6-7 years ago, which I really wanted, but I couldn't afford it. It was thousands and thousands. I ended up spending 20,000 on something from Amsterdam instead. But you have some very good material. I don't know where you get your material from, but most of the dealers here go over to Amsterdam. Van Looy is coming up this weekend, and this might interest you as well. The German auction houses. What might interest you is I went to an auction yesterday with a friend of mine, and the prices were absolutely through the roof. There were two American dealers there vacuuming up everything. I mean, it's not a bit of number 345, bit of number 345, every single thing. And I said to somebody who knows, I said, who the hell is this? Oh, he's an American dealer. And he was. He actually was Canadian. And you know which Canadian auction house that will be. And the other guy was American. Sorry, Canadian dealer, I should say. But yeah, they were vacuuming this stuff up. And apparently, because I don't go to many auctions, it also happened at the Martello auction, which was in Kent. a provincial auction, which was in Oxford. And I said, what is happening? He said, because there's a paucity of material in the US, and that's where they're coming here, and it's so cheap over here. And then I found, which is something which surprised me, because the English dealers go to Amsterdam, Antwerp, and the German auction houses to get their stuff. The auction houses do it. So if you see something at the auction house, which will say a Sherbrooke, get guaranteed they bought it somewhere in Germany or Netherlands or Belgium. Not French, because French is too expensive. So that's what's happening. But you guys, you're not making any trips to Europe to get all your stock. They come back with a van.
Yeah. We've got 3 sister companies in Europe who generally scour the continent in the UK. So we don't have much of a foothold in Europe, since they kind of take care of all that side of things.
What happened to Harmer's in London? Because they used to have a really good operation, and it kind of like died.
Yeah. So they got bought out by the Balafi Group out of Italy.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that Italy sort of made more difficult their auction laws. So Balafi was having trouble selling stuff in Italy. So they bought Harmer's of London sort of as a way to get things out of the country.
Yeah.
I think they've had 1 or 2 auctions since they reformed, but they're not all too active. They're under a completely separate ownership than us American Harmer's now.
Because quite a few auction houses have closed, especially in the London and Southeast area. One of the big ones was Mayfair auctions, not doing it anymore. And so there's a need for a good auction house, and then Harmer's would be able to fill that gap, but you can't do it now because you sold it. But it's a shame, because they did provide the need.
There were some decisions made by predecessors that I don't love. At least we've got the New York operation going strong.
Yeah, you got that one going strong. I'm sure the Chinese operation is probably going great guns as well.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's 2 ways of making money as a dealer, from what I understand. One is buy a Lincoln, which is a common stamp album here, stick a penny black in it, you multiply the price by 3. And the other is buy any album, put a large dragon in it, you multiply the price by 2, no matter what else is in it.
Yeah.
Ways to make money quickly. Anyway, I've taken up all your time.
No, we've appreciated this very much.
Yeah,
This has been fantastic, and we can't wait to share this. This will run this coming Monday.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well,
thank you so much.
And I will send you an email after I put some of your stamps up so you can see it. And I've also be interested if it creates any results in traffic, because I will add a link so you can track what's happening. I'll add a link underneath the stamp to Harmer's and Noble Spirit. I'll do it 50-50. So you can see if there's any benefit from doing this in the future.
We look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much. I feel like we have such a better understanding of what Swedish Tiger is. And yeah, you've been following it longer. I mean, when you talk about going on the site in 2008 or whatever, Michael, I didn't know what a postage stamp was. I was so far from collecting in 2008. So the fact that you've been able to see this website evolve and grow over the years, and then to hear where Roger's going to be taking it over the next couple of years. Yeah, it absolutely is. And, we've talked to other people who run stamp websites. And again, just having talked to Jay, talking to Don Denman, talking to people who are involved in digital philately. And I'm not going to lie, I've got a browser window open. James Gavin, but I've got the Ferjola board open. We want to talk to Richard Ferjola at some point about his message board. Yeah. I love, there's so many people who, I feel like a broken record saying this, but they come to us, Charles, Michael, you're young. How do we use Facebook to get people to collect stamps or whatnot? And I don't think that that's ever really a practical, fix for the hobby. But seeing people like Roger who've put so much time and effort and money into this website really is a labor of love. That's the way we can utilize technology. I love my Niken and Ashbrook and Joel books. Yeah, that's great. But having a website like this and having a steward and a curator for a website like this is really important. And I think this is just such an effective use of technology on this hobby without diluting the hobby or trivializing the hobby either.
Yes. What's really interesting is, he built this with his knowledge learning from books, and then experts came to him and said, you've got a tremendous thing here. Let's give you more content to put on your website so that you can provide more information for free. These are actual expertisers providing information they use to expertise material that's going on to his website for free for people to look up the material themselves to see if they should decide to send their stamps in or not. That's just absolutely phenomenal. It's incredible that they would provide this service to people to learn from. And as we said ourselves, I use it all the time for Washington Franklin's. It's incredibly helpful if you don't have one of those Scott, the tiny Scott Washington Franklin identifiers with you, or you're not carrying your massive Specialized. But this thing, the fact that he's still getting emails about
there's times where you don't carry your
Specialized
with you, Michael.
No,
it goes back into last week's episode.
Yeah. No, but the also to briefly touch upon the thing you said before about Facebook. Yeah, a lot of people try to slap that Band-Aid on, say, let's just invite people to our Facebook page and leave it alone. There's a lot of people doing some really good things with active Facebook pages. We, at the Collectors Club, the Liechtenstein dinner, I was talking to Cheryl, and she was saying, Cheryl Gons, and she was talking about a Facebook group that she manages on Zeppelins. And she said a lot of people come into it as younger 20s, 30s people looking to learn about the history of Zeppelins and the history of airmail. And that's bringing them into philately, is that history. And I think there's a lot of good being done with Facebook pages like that, the one that Cheryl manages and stuff. But
absolutely. Right. Again, I'm not saying it's not part of the
no,
fix,
I know.
but it's but again, I think websites like this and his foresight to have this carry on, long past his ability to continue. I think that's great, is preserving these things for the future. So no, again, I enjoyed this conversation very much. I love that the last 2 weeks we've been touching on digital forward thinking aspects of the hobby. I think that's important. And I think that's something we should keep focusing on moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a great episode. Looking forward to next week, whatever we do. But
we still got to figure it out, but it'll be fun.
Still got to figure it out. But I'm looking forward to it. It's good to be back. It was great to talk to Roger Kirby. Please, I will put a link to his website in the
If you're
show
not
notes.
already using it, you have to.
Yeah, if you're a U.S. collector and you're not already one of the 1.5 million visits he's had this year,
should be.
Yeah, you should be. I don't know if that was this year or total. I got to assume
I think it was last year.
Yeah, that was last year, and he's going for 2 million this year. If you're not one of those
let's get him to that
visitors, you got to be. It's incredibly useful. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. So as always, Spotify podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We are on YouTube. You can watch this. You can see the beams in my house that I'm more proud of than anything these days. And Nigel, who popped up for a second. We are online at philatelypodcast.com. Email is philatelypodcast@gmail.com. Always love hearing from everyone. I'm going to be at NAPEX next weekend. I should mention that since this is running Monday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday this coming week, I will be at the Harmer booth at NAPEX in Washington, D.C. area. And then you and I will both be at CAPEX the following week in Toronto, Canada. So if you're at NAPEX, if you're at CAPEX, please come say hello to us. Shoot us a note, write us on Twitter at Michael J. Court, at Charles L. Epting. And I think that's all we've got for today, Michael. So I'll talk to you again real soon.
Excellent sign off. We'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Bye.